And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Tom Vasel.
Hey everybody, I'm Tom Vasel. Today we're taking a look at Mythos Tales. Now Mythos Tales is based on Sherlock Holmes' Consulting Detective, a game that came out many years ago and actually has had a sequel. This is a very similar thing, designed by Hal Eccles and Will Kenyon, but placed in the Arkham universe, or the Lovecraftian universe, the city of Arkham. Now this is a game that it says 1 to 8 investigators on it, because it's a cooperative game, but it's more of a cooperative investigation. You are trying to figure out what happened. It comes with a book of cases, and each case you are just sitting there and saying, okay, if I do this, if I figure this out, if I go here, if I do this, who committed the crime? You're trying to figure out a bunch of questions and different things set in a very spooky Cthulhu-esque universe. I don't want to spoil this for you. I'm just going to kind of show you a little bit of how to play, and then we'll be back. There's a lot going on in this game, and I'm really trying not to spoil things, but I think a lot of this doesn't really matter that much. For example, here is the map. You're going to use this in each one, and this map, which folds out and shows you the city of Arkham here, and on the map are different buildings. It just shows you the locations, and that might matter. And kind of a compendium to that is a directory, and in this directory, it shows you the map and the different things, and this just shows you where a lot of people live. And it lists all that. It lists them in alphabetical order. It also lists them by some different types, like here's all the stores and things. So this might come in handy. All of this is going to be done around an investigation book. This investigation book is very thick. At the beginning, there's an introduction by Richard Launius, and then there is a story. And in each story, it will start out by talking about how to do the time tracker and things. It will give you an introduction. And then I don't want to spoil these for you, but when you get to the end, there's going to be some questions here, and your goal is to answer as many of those questions correctly as you possibly can. You're going to be doing that by figuring out where to go. How do you figure out where to go? Well, there's an instruction book that gives you some idea of what to do, but there's some clues on the back of this book. You will have a newspaper that corresponds, and you can also use newspapers from cases that came before your case. And there might be clues all throughout this newspaper. You might decide to go visit someone. How do you know to go visit someone? Well, the newspaper or the story might give you a clue. You might look up in here. You might figure out where something is on the map. And so I say, oh, I'm going to go to L8. So in your story, you'll look and see, is there an L8? There isn't. There's L18 and L4. So there is no L8. So therefore, that doesn't work for that particular one, and you've wasted time. You're keeping track of your time on a time tracker. When you get to a certain amount, you have to go to the questions. And that's basically it. Players are working together. You can write down information. You're going to be using, like I said, the newspaper, the directory, the map, and finding things out in these books, using clues that people have given you. Sometimes you say, well, you know what? Maybe we need to go visit such and such. This tells you on the back of here, like, Herbert Corbett is the local criminologist. And you're like, hey, maybe that's the guy we should see. Or maybe you're going to go see the Order of the Silver Twilight. So you might do that, but you're also going to learn where other people are. And I know I'm being a bit ambiguous here as to what to do and where to go, but I don't want to spoil the different cases for you. There's also a set of number cards that comes with the game. Sometimes it'll tell you to take a certain item. So let's say you get a bazooka, number 12. There's no bazooka. And then later on it says, if you have an item 12, do this. And then you get to do that different thing. So that's basically how the game works. You are then trying to solve the case better than the criminologist in the case, okay? So you're going to be working with a doctor or a professor, and he is going to be, Armitage is his name. He's going to be solving the case, and it will tell you, after you've solved everything, exactly how he did it, what locations he went to figure out the case, and you got to try to beat it faster than him. But that's not necessarily the thing of the game either. You could just kind of have fun going around and solving it yourself. You'll find things that you'll go to locations he didn't go to. So it's really kind of a little bit more open-ended than that. and that's kind of how you play. Okay, first of all, let's talk about the components of the game. This book here, great book. I really enjoyed the writing of this book. The writing, I haven't gone through all the investigations yet, but the ones that I have gone through, the writing is very well done. It's interesting. It has that Cthulhu dread in the background. There's some spooky stuff that happens, and there's different artwork on the pages, and I find that stuff interesting, and it kind of gets you into the mood. Now, the Armitage fellow that you meet, he's Sherlock Holmes. I mean, he acts like Sherlock Holmes. He's Sherlock Holmes who also stakes vampires. That's basically what he is in this game. So that's cool. However, I must note that there is a decent amount of errors in the game. If you were looking at the map, you might have noticed I wrote a number on the map. There are errors. So when you play this, you definitely want to go online, and the designers have worked hard to put together an FAQ that says this is what you need to know for this investigation. Here's some missing stuff in the book. It's unfortunate that that stuff exists, but it does. And some of it's pretty important. So for each case, I'd recommend going online to see what you're missing. I think it's possible to go through them without it, but just keep that in mind. The cases themselves are scary. I wouldn't play this with kids. It's pretty heavy stuff involving all sorts of things like suicide and I mean, just gory details occasionally. But the town does feel vibrant and living. You know, you'll meet people and you might cross someone's path in one case that you've met in another one, and that's fascinating. The game says 1 to 8 players. I think 8 is too many people around a table. And I did try this game solo, and I wasn't as keen on it solo. Because solo, I was sitting there with the map and the book, and I was like, oh, and that, it goes here, and we'll do that, and oh, I don't remember anything. But when I played with a group of people, it was more interesting because one person would say, hey, I'm in charge. You know, one person's looking at the map, another person's reading the newspaper. So I thought it worked better. I think 3, 4, 5, 6 is probably the best range for this. The game is really intriguing. Like I said, it's not really kind of a game. It's kind of an experience. It's almost like a puzzle room, maybe. It's kind of like not a choose your own adventure, but just it's like, what are we going to find here? Because when you get to the end, and Armitage says, I went here, and you're like, yeah, sure, okay, we never would have figured it out in that order. But you might have figured it out in a different order. And you can find things by going to different places. Also, Armitage makes some pretty hefty jumps in logic sometimes. I'm like, yeah, you wouldn't have figured that out, buddy. However, I still find the whole thing fascinating. I don't really care about whether we win or not. I mean, I do want to get as many questions right as we possibly can when it comes time to listing the questions. And it's really kind of creepy because on the newspaper and stuff, you'll see little weird things there, and you're like, what does that have to do with anything? What does that mean? Or you'll read something that seems very innocuous, and you're like, I don't know, that might be more heavy-handed. So I find that sort of thing fascinating. The whole thing is just intriguing to go through, but I like going through with a group. I do think the game might be better as an app, and the reason for that is when you're flipping through this Tales of Books, and it will say, okay, and by the way, there's different rules that might be included with some of them, but I'm like, okay, I'm going to D7. Okay, D7's not in here, but I see on the page that there's D5. I didn't mean to see D5. And the book says, don't look at the other numbers. All right, I'll try not to. There's also big pictures on the page. You're like, I just saw a zombie. What does that mean? And I almost wish it was an app where you just would type in the numbers and boom, up would pop the thing that you would read. You would read that, or it would say, nothing at that location, sorry. This is like made for that. Flipping through the book is fine, but the problem is you're going to accidentally see stuff even if you don't mean to. So you have to kind of get it in your head like, I'm not looking, okay, here we go, there we go. And ignore everything else. As someone who's a speed reader and can scan pages pretty quickly, that's very difficult to do, but I imagine maybe for many people it will not be as problematic. But still, I hope someone makes one of these that does have an app involved. It's cool. It's like an investigation, you're trying to figure things out, all with this Cthulhu Lovecraftian mythos in the background. I've actually not played the Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective stories yet. They're on my shelf. I'm going to play them. I think they'll be a lot of fun. But from what I can tell, and from playing this with people who have played them, it's very similar, just with a darker, deeper Cthulhu theme in the background. So if you like that, you'll probably enjoy this. If you're probably looking for something more mundane, I guess is the wrong word, but like typical murders, then the Sherlock Holmes is good. But if you like Sherlock Holmes, I think that you will enjoy this also. But just like I said, check online for the errors. Dice Tower Judgment, approved.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.
Shut the door.